A lot of times we hear policymakers and people in high positions talk about, the need for a strong dollar. We need the strong dollar. We need a strong dollar. King dollar, right? Larry+Kudlow, King dollar. Listen, good policy starts with the basic understanding that 46 years ago, the world went to a floating exchange rate system for, a good reason. That was a much better system than the gold standard, which existed for 150 years prior to that. And I just went over, I did in a video, my last video, why the gold standard is a ridiculous consideration and a ridiculous system, but it's even a more ridiculous consideration nowadays. But anyway, good economic policy starts with the understanding that we are in a system of floating exchange rates. And we did that because it frees up our fiscal and monetary policy, and it allows that policy to focus on maximizing the output and employment of our economy. Okay, it makes it autonomous from the currency. So we have the ability now, and economists call this policy space. We have much more policy space where monetary authorities, fiscal authorities can use fiscal stimulus to ensure that the economy has enough demand, aggregate demand, so that we are operating at full output and full employment. And whatever happens to the currency should be of no regard. I mean, if the currency is strong and we achieve full output and full employment, which is the very definition of the highest level of utility, the highest level of net worth of our society, then we should do that without consideration or regard to the foreign exchange value of the currency, and vice versa. If the currency's value goes down, but all of our workers are employed, people have a high standard of living, our output is maximized, then we should not really care about the foreign exchange value of the currency. But yet, policy is very much focused on the foreign exchange value of the currency, as opposed to being focused on maximizing the potential of our economy. And again, this is kind of like gold standard thinking. And it goes back to what I said in my last video, which was what Alan Greenspan said. We are no longer on the gold standard, but we act as if we are on the gold standard. So policymakers at the highest level should be focused on maximizing employment and output. That's it. They should not be concerned with where the dollar is. The dollar floats, okay? And there's gonna be times when the dollar goes up against other currencies. There's gonna be times when the dollar goes down against our other currencies. And it should really not be a consideration. When you start to focus on the dollar and say things like King dollar and make that, job number one or goal number one, then you have relinquished all that policy space that was afforded to you in a floating exchange rate system. Why did we go on it in the first place if we're going to act like we're on a fixed exchange rate system? It's totally ridiculous. It's irrational. So you get people like Kudlow, you get people like Steve Forbes, you get people like all these backward thinking, kind of Austrian thinking, gold standard, gold bugs, who focus on the foreign exchange value of the dollar as opposed to maximizing our potential here in our own economy. Now, this is where I think Trump sort of gets it. I don't think he gets it on this level, but he's kind of gets the fact that, look, we have a lot of unused capacity in this country, industrial capacity. We have a lot of people who have, kind of quit the workforce because they have not been able to find jobs. And if you can, kind of re-engage that industrial capacity, put it back to use, and get people working and raise their income so they have the means to buy the output produced right here, then that is the very definition of achieving the highest standard of living for our country and for our people that we could possibly achieve. It's not about focusing what the exchange rate of the dollar is against the euro or the yen or the British pound or whatever. I mean, that's just ridiculous. But yet, in many areas of economics and in many areas of policy, that is the focus, and it's put out there as if that should be the goal. Like, what do people like Kudlow think? Like, you max it, yes, King$Dollar. Meanwhile, everybody's unemployed, and we have only 65 or 75% industrial capacity use. Everything else, 25% of our output capability is sitting there idle. I mean, any manager who was running a company who only used 75% of that company's potential would be fired. He'd be canned, okay? But yet that's the exact proposal that's being offered by these fools, as somehow saying that that's what we need to do. As a matter of fact, if we followed through on the King$Dollar thing and just maximized the dollar, made it as strong as it could possibly be, we might be only using 50% of our industrial capacity at that time. In other words, think again in terms of some manager of a company who intentionally brought down the output of that business, to 50% of its potential. I mean, that manager would not remain in place. They'd be canned. They'd be fired in an instant. So, I mean, it's a ridiculous thing to be focused on the foreign exchange value of the currency when, in fact, you have the ability now, you have the free hand as a result of floating exchange rates to focus on policy that maximizes the potential of the entire economy and workers, and ensuring that they are employed and have sufficient income to buy the output of the country. That's it. Very simple. When I hear this stuff about King$Dollar and we got to keep the dollar strong and strong dollar policy, that is just like that is a slap in the face to every American worker and really every American who wants to see the country prosper and have the possibility to attain the highest standard of living that that they can possibly attain. I mean, it's just, these are people who are talking out their ass, who don't understand anything, and it's a detriment. It's a detriment. It's a detriment. So I say, weak dollar, strong dollar, who cares? We shouldn't even be looking at that. That's the attitude we should take. Bye.